So I have always wanted to make videos, and I didn't really have one single topic I would like to talk about because I like many things. I've been making video diaries that I have been putting up about my directing classes as I start my training for theatre directing. I've always had a love for books. I've always wanted to make videos about books that I love also. So I'm just gonna jump right in, and I decided to make the first bookish video, a video about my favourite book. My favourite book being Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Kind of count it as one book even though it's two. There's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and then Through the Looking Glass, and in brackets What Alice Found There. Those are my favourite books, and they have been since I was very little. So Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I collect editions of the books because it's my favourite book. And the first edition that I ever owned, that I am aware of anyway, is this, which is a Russian edition. It was published in 2001. It's quite new. It was when I moved to Dublin and my parents bought me this. It's my first edition and the illustrations are pretty amazing. They're pretty fabulous. I love them. This book, this one is pretty battered for a hardback because I read it quite a lot when I was younger. Since I speak English so much and I read in English and I think in English, reading in Russian has become pretty much a difficult task. I still speak it fluently, but I'm forgetting it very quickly, so reading has not become as enjoyable now as it is in English. But I do own two Russian editions, an Italian one, which I bought myself this year, a French one, and the rest are English. For now, why is this my favourite book? It's difficult to describe. I just love absolutely everything about it. I have always been obsessed with people and personalities, and especially quirky or eccentric people. And for me, if I love a book, I will always, or most of the time, really like the person behind the book. For me, it's kind of difficult to separate biography and art. That's just the kind of person I am, apparently. I love John Keats as a human being because he was amazing, and I adore his poetry. Same with Byron. I mean, he was an eccentric, incredible, fascinating human being, and I like his poetry. Same with Lewis Carroll, or Charles Dodgson, as was his real name. He is someone who I probably wouldn't have got along with in person. He was a mathematician, he was timid, he liked children, and I hate them, or find it difficult to deal with them sometimes, whereas he, played games with them and actually enjoyed their company. And he was religious, which, I, as a non-religious person, would have an issue with. But he was quirky, and when you talk about Lewis Carroll, you will run into rumors and allegations, and it's kind of hard to separate him from all the rumors. There's been so much research done about them, and people try and either prove rumors or disapprove rumors, or, bust the myths. And we still don't have any definitive answers. People will still argue about it for years to come. And I wrote my dissertation on these two books this year, and it was really difficult to try and avoid any kind of personal statements and to avoid his biography totally as well. But that's a different story. This is my favourite book because I adore Lewis Carroll as a person. I adore the story that's behind this book, that it was written for an actual girl named Alice. It was written on, a July day in the summer as well, while they were having a boating trip, and she asked him to write down a story because the one he told during the boating trip fascinated her, and she said, please write it down. So he did, even though it took many years. I adore this story because everything kind of quirky and mad and fantastic appeals to me. I adored the madness of it all when I was younger, The colors, the different characters, the tea drinking. I, as a obsessive tea drinker, obviously love the Mad Hatter and the tea drinking. I adore the books. It's a wonderful, wonderful, crazy world, and they have no moral. And that was kind of revolutionary when this book was written. I have this little book called Inventing Wonderland by Jackie Wolfschlager, where she talks about children's authors, including Lewis Carroll, Edward Lear, Jan Barrie, Milne, who wrote the Winnie the Pooh series. She talks about these books in chronological order and the kind of historical and social context around the time these books were written for children and why grown men wrote these books. She makes a statement which I kind of used in my dissertation because I think it's quite important, and it makes me really upset when people review or talk about Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and they say they completely despise the book because they don't understand it, and they say it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense, and it's because it has no moral, and like I said, that was the revolutionary thing. So, Jackie says that the importance of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland as a radical breakthrough in the history of children's literature can hardly be overestimated. As the first, and for a long time the only children's stories without a moral, they are favourites in the Victorian nursery. They were a radical breakthrough because before this, she also says here, that before Carroll and Lear, that's Edward Lear, the nonsense poet, children's books were educational tracts preaching conformity and obedience. Since then, they have been anarchic, jokey, and irreverent. And of course that can be debated. Of course that can be debated. I'm not an English scholar, even though I was an English student. I don't know enough to debate this properly. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, because it didn't preach, good children will go to heaven, and if you're a good Victorian child, your parents will love you and good things will happen, and if you're not, you'll get punished and bad things will happen and you'll go to hell. And there's none of that in Alice, which is wonderful. It's just madness. It's just illogical adventuring that leads to nothing and to everything and to more strange things and to more strange characters. And then she wakes up and it was all a bunch of fun in her head. I don't know, I adore this world and I adore these books, and I really like Alice. People have issues with Alice. They say that she's, too bossy, or she's a really snotty, annoying, angry child that's just, stomping around Wonderland. And she's unlikable, but I do like her. She is the only sane creature in Wonderland, firstly. She's the only one who's questioning things there. She's a child, so, when you can't expect a child to be able to negotiate a strange world, like that, without any kind of guidelines or help or anything, when all the other adults are mad and making no sense whatsoever and cutting off people's heads. So, being a child in this insane, scary world, of course she's going to be maybe arrogant, she's going to be whipping out information that she thinks is correct from her, real life. She's going to, find everything strange and frustrating. And she's pretty strong and powerful for a little girl stuck in this crazy world with adults that aren't acting like adults. So I adore this book, and Through the Looking Glass, which is more melancholy than Alice's Adventures, because it was written after Lewis Carroll's father died, and it had been many years since Alice's Adventures, so Alice and her sisters had grown up. So he's looking back on the world